Little Princess. A story written by Zoe H. Isabella Holmes had everything she could ever want. Her father was a famous lawyer, and her mother was an oral surgeon. Together, they provided a very luxurious life, so she was able to get everything she ever wanted, from the newest phones to all the ponies she could ever want. This in turn made her very spoiled and very rotten to the housekeepers and people who worked for her father and mother. She often made them call her Princess Isa, like her favorite fairy tales. Her adopted sister, Harmony, was the complete opposite of her. She was brought into the Holmes family after Mrs. Holmes found her hiding in the bushes outside the dental clinic she worked at. Feeling that motherly instinct kick in, she brought Harmony home with her, and she was officially adopted by the family thanks to the help of Mr. Holmes's connection. She was kind and thoughtful of others. She never asked for much, even though she could have everything, and always helped those who were in need. She was very skilled in sewing and dreamed of becoming a fashion designer in the big city. She also always wore a silver heart-shaped pendant her biological mother gave to her before passing away, which led to her being an orphan in the first place. Isa hated when her sister was the center of everyone's attention. In fact, she hated everything about her, even though Harmony always tried to be nice to her. One day at school, both girls were in the hallway at their lockers. At that moment, they spotted their classmate, John Appleton, handing out flyers for something. He also came from a rich family, but his family was known for producing the most beautiful dresses and clothing in town. Isabella had a huge crush on him, not just because of his looks, but because he could provide her with the life she, as a princess, deserved. Just then, John came up to the girls with a warm smile. "Hi, girls. Want a flyer?" he asked. "What's it for?" "It's not another school dance, is it?" Harmony asked jokingly. "No, actually. My parents are holding a gala in honor of the company's 60th anniversary. It was started when my grandpa was a young man, after all, so we're holding a party for it," John explained, handing them the flyers. Isa fluttered her eyelashes at John, trying her best to flirt with him. "Ooh, I'll definitely be there, John, but I don't know about my dumb sister," she said, pointing at Harmony. John looked at her, not even fazed or knowing what Isa was doing. "Well, I hope she does come, but I understand if she can't. See you two later," he said, and walked off. Isabella huffed in annoyance and slammed her locker door shut. "Don't even think about stealing him away from me. He's mine," she said, glaring at Harmony before leaving. Harmony sighed as she grabbed her books for her class. Over the next few weeks, Isabella kept trying to look like the perfect girl for John. She would smudge on more and more makeup and started to wear actual princess-like clothing, which were just costume pieces from a costume shop she bought them from, using her parents' money, of course. She also started referring John as her Prince Charming and talked non-stop about the non-existent life she'll have with him. She started to follow him wherever he went, smiling at her crush who never noticed her in the slightest. Meanwhile, Harmony decided to make her own dress and accessories for the gala. She worked many long hours designing and perfecting the dress, and so she would always stop by the Appleton's clothing emporium for inspiration and advice. John and his family got to know Harmony much better during that time, and they eventually grew to love her, which ended up with Harmony and John hanging out a lot after school, much to Isabella's anger. One day, Harmony was jotting down notes of a dress she saw on the back hanger. It was a long, dark blue dress that looked brand new, but was kept in the do not sell rack at the back of the store. Just then, John came up to her. "Hey, I saw you looking at this old dress again." "I can't help it. It's a beautiful dress. I don't understand why it's back here." "Mom put it back here. She said it wasn't classy enough. She's always uptight about this sort of thing." Harmony chuckled to herself. She got to know how strict John's mother was about this sort of thing, but she always saw a softer side of her, especially since she loved the designs Harmony showed her. John cleared his throat and smiled. Hey, listen, Harmony. I wanted to ask you something. See, with the family gala coming up, and with how much my family seems to like you being here doing research and all, I was wondering if you'd like to be my +1 to the event." Harmony looked at him surprised. She thought about Isabella and her crush on John. She didn't want to upset her sister, but then again, she'd probably get mad at her for some other reason. Plus, John never noticed Isa, right? What's the worst that could happen? I'd love to, John, she said. John scooted closer to her and put his hand on hers. They both started blushing at one another, unaware that Isabella was watching. The night of the gala came, and Harmony was getting ready in her handmade dress, which was a lavender-colored ball gown that she paired with white shoes and a silver heart pendant. Just then, she heard her door shut. She turned and tried to open it, but it was stuck. Harmony was terrified and tried to call out for help. On the other side, a smug-looking Isabella listened to her sister on the other side of the door. She put 2 large tables against the door, locking Harmony in the room. "This is what you get for stealing my Prince Charming!" she yelled at Harmony. At that moment, John, who had been let in by Mr. and Mrs. Holmes, came up the stairs to see the scene. "Isa, what the hell?" Isa winked at him, fixing her plastic crown and posing in her overly exaggerated princess costume. "What do you mean? Don't we have a date? I got all ready for you, Prince," she said and got close. She rubbed her hands on John's chest, which started to freak him out. "Like what you see, my prince? Are you ready for the party?" she asked him, trying to seduce him. John pushed Isa off of him, which ended up with her falling to the floor. Just then, Mr. and Mrs. Holmes came rushing upstairs. They saw Isa on the floor yelling and throwing a tantrum, while John tried to get the tables away from the door. After a tense moment, Harmony was finally let out of her room. She was holding onto John, shaking and crying, while her parents were scolding Isabella. They finally had enough of her spoiled attitude, so they decided to ground her for a whole year, which meant no more new stuff for her, and she was, of course, not allowed to go to John's party. John got Harmony out of there before things could get worse with Isabella. The night's gala was one of the best parties in town. Harmony and John were dancing and enjoying themselves, while everyone had their eyes on Harmony in her beautiful handmade dress, dancing with the heir to the family business. John's mother was ecstatic seeing the two of them together. It was one of the best nights of her life. After a while, Harmony and John strolled through the garden outside the manor together. "I'm really glad you came, Harmony. I'm having a lot of fun tonight." "I'm having fun too, John. I'm glad you invited me. I'm sorry about Isabella earlier, and all the times she creeped you out." "Honestly, she never creeped me out until now. I didn't even know she liked me. Never noticed. But, I do like you, Harmony." You like me?" John nodded to her, but before he could say anything, a scream came from farther within the garden. Harmony and John both raced towards the sound to see what was going on, only to see an awful sight. There, standing in the middle of the garden, was Isabella. Her face was contorted into a wide smile. Blood dripped from a butcher's knife she held and stained the princess costume she was wearing. Laying at Isabella's feet was John's mother, or at least the body of her. It lay lifeless as Isabella held her head in the other hand. John stared at Isabella, a mixture of fright, sadness, and disgust on his face. "Isabella, what did you do?" he asked in anger. Isabella just looked at him, the same twisted smile on her face. "Don't you see, my prince? She was keeping us apart. I am your one true princess. All of this will be mine like it should be. I'm a little princess. Me, not her!" Isabella raced towards John and Harmony, waving the butcher's knife like crazy. Harmony stepped in front of John just in time as Isabella swung the knife down onto her face. Her smile went wider as she did so, but she didn't notice John quickly grabbing a flower vase and throwing it at her. Isabella turned around, her smile turning into a frown. She walked slowly towards John, dropping his mother's head in the process. Why can't you see, my prince? This ugly witch has casted a spell on you. I am your one true love. I'm the one who's supposed to have a lot of money, an obedient husband, and the life of a rich princess. Why can't you see that?" John kept backing up, frightened by this crazy teenager, until he backed up into the stone wall of the garden. Isabella held the butcher's knife to his neck as she rubbed his cheek. "You're gonna be a good husband. You're gonna pamper me with all the luxuries you're gonna buy me. You don't have a say in this matter, my prince." John thought he was done for. But suddenly, a shovel hit Isabella on the head, and she fell to the ground unconscious. John looked at Isabella, then looked up to see Harmony holding the shovel, blood dripping from a cut on her face. Police were finally called to the scene after another partygoer found the three teens. Harmony was taken to the hospital to get stitched up, and Isabella was arrested. She later revealed that she planned to kill John's mom and Harmony, kidnap John, and forge a marriage certificate to make her his wife. She was sent to the sanitarium for the rest of her life. Harmony surprisingly recovered despite the huge cut she took to the face, but she was left with a scar that went from her eye to her cheek. Isabella's parents never visited her or bailed her out, opting to forget about her altogether for the shame she brought to the family. Harmony was with John as he grieved for his mother, and as time passed on, they started dating officially. Despite what happened, Harmony still held her head high, sharing the kindness to those who deserved it, and eventually lived a happy life. Meanwhile, within the padded walls of the town's asylum, a certain girl lived in wait for her prince, wearing a bloody dressing crown, smiling widely and constantly telling herself, "I'm a little princess! I'm a little princess!"